As a person, in my own personality type or the person that I am, accepting vulnerability does not come that easy. I like to be seen, to be in charge of things, to be in control, and to be able to cater for myself. And so learning to accept love and care from others is a learning point for me, an area of conversion or repentance, to embrace vulnerability and to learn to accept the care of other peoples. This week too, I experienced a little bit of vulnerability. I developed a little back muscle spasm. Earlier in this week, as we were doing our live stream mess, I felt a twitch in my back muscle, and I knew there were other things coming on when that happens. And so on Friday night, I did not sleep very well. Could not have a good sleep because of that uncomfortability of that spasm. So on yesterday, I called Dr. Francis and asked her for some medication, and she gave me some medication plus some spray, topical spray, which I asked Father Sefo to spray on my back. That in itself is it's coming to terms with vulnerability. I hate to be immobilized by sickness, but yesterday was one of those times that I have to embrace vulnerability and to accept that and to lie down for a while. I become helpless in the face of vulnerability. Now, Jesus' mission instructions to the disciples is very unorthodox and radical, because it's about this vulnerability. In today's language, when you send out people on a mission, Jesus would have said this: prepare well, take a lot of supplies, food for people that you meet on the road, make sure that you mask up, keep your social distance, and frequently sanitize. In fact, this is my request and instruction to Father Sulio and the Caritas team, that they take care of themselves, especially with regard to COVID instructions. Jesus had a different set of plans when he instructed the apostles. It was the unorthodox. It's very different. Jesus said, go as you are. Whatever you have, that's how you go, even with less. Take nothing with you, no food, no money, no power, and go as you are. In other words, present yourself as being vulnerable and dependent on others. Trust in the goodness of others. Be vulnerable. Be open to the love and care of others. And of course, have this faith in God. Now today is Mark's Gospel. Matthew, which builds on Mark's Gospel, he even moves one step further in this radical mission instruction. He says, don't even take any sandal. Don't wear sandals. Mark says, wear your sandal. But Matthew says, don't even wear your sandal. Even more radical than Mark. So Jesus' instruction and power, we'll explain this later on, is in vulnerability. We can say that his mission plan or his strategic plan was in vulnerability. He spoke, the Gospels write that he spoke with power. Unlike the scribes and the Pharisees, the Gospel writers did not actually say the word power, but when they first wrote the Bible in Greek, they used the word exousia. S-I-A, exousia, which is the Greek word for this kind of power. So Jesus had this kind of power, which in Greek is called exousia. Now, what is this kind of power that the scribes say, that the writers of the gospel writer says, unlike the scribes, he taught, he spoke with exousia. So what is exousia? So the dictionary says, the Greek translation, it's a kind of physical mental power, the ability or strength with which one has, and the ability to exercise and have that power over people. Now, to make this exousia power that Jesus has, one of our modern day spiritual writers, Father Ronald Rolheiser, tells this analogy, this comparison of this form of power. And he says, let me read from Father Rolheiser's book, and he says, okay, this thing is, if you put one baby and the strongest soldier in a room, who has the stronger power? Obviously, we'd say the soldier has the strong soldier has that power. He can do whatever he likes on this baby. But in fact, it's the baby that has this exousia, this power over. The baby, because of its vulnerability and almost like weakness, has that power to draw people to itself, to draw people in. It has that power. So when the baby cries, it draws people to itself. In fact, that's how babies communicate when it needs something. It cries. So the baby has this kind of exousia power, ability to draw people to itself. So God's power is the power of exousia. A baby that lays helpless, muted, cannot even speak, can only cry, giggle, laugh, patient, beckoning for us to take care of it. It's this power that lies in the deepest base of things and will. In the end, this is the kind of power that will have the final say. It's true, the only power upon which love and community can be created because of it. And it alone ultimately softens rather than breaks the heart. It's the power that invites. It's a wonderful power. I only pray, and we should pray for this, that our civil and political powers have this exousia power. Because when they have that, when they acknowledge their vulnerability and the vulnerability of the world, they become helpless. Like the baby, then they draw people in. They ask people to participate in their decision making. They attract people. They build trust and dependency on people to them. And it's this is the power of God. This is the power of Jesus. And we just pray that our civil leaders and political leaders will adopt this kind of power, this exousia, vulnerable power that invites people into their leadership, and through them build a love and a community in a time that we are facing now during these vulnerable times. And this is the power that we can stop the spread of COVID-19, a power that brings in people, builds confidence. Today we have to embrace the fact it's not a fairy tale, it's not a novel story. We are facing real, painful, uncertain, frightening, vulnerable times. But it's not altogether that new. We have faced the dangers of climate change And we small islands are in the front line of victims of climate change. We face the biggest disaster of climate change, which is the destruction of the ocean, the destruction of our food bank, and sea level rising, which will see small atolls 7 feet underwater. Then we have domestic violence in our country now, increased, escalated by COVID-19. Women continue to be abused, and children. Men are also vulnerable. Last night we had a women webinar. Tonight we will have a male spirituality webinar. And so COVID-19 has escalated these uncertain times. And so the mission, the Jesus' mission instruction of vulnerability is what the world needs today, what we need to embrace the vulnerability of our times, where Jesus teaches us that we need one another. It's not the government's job alone. They cannot do it alone. They need us, and they need to reach out to us and invite us into their decision making. We need one another. Husbands and wives need one another. You have to start investing time on building up relationships in your homes. Your children and parents and children need one another. And we need to remind this. So vulnerability teaches us that we cannot go alone. We need one another. We are made for each other. We complement each other. That is why God made men and women. Pope Francis says our life depends on 3 fundamental relationships. Relationship with God, neighbor, and creation. We have to mend, reweave this network of relationships so that we can heal our world. I'm reminded of this imagery of the web of life, or the network of life. The image that comes to me is my grandmother and also my mother. When we, now and then, before they go out and catch fish using their nets, they will mend their nets. They will bring their net, see the strands that are broken, patch it up. They have to remend this web, the net, before they go out and catch fish. If they don't remend, patch up the torn strands, a lot of fish will go through the net. We are sent on a mission, and to fulfill that mission, we need to remend our vulnerability, the broken pieces of our relationship with God, neighbor, and self. We must embrace our vulnerability in order to bring God's mission of repentance to the world.